When someone ignores you, it can feel like a door slamming shut in your face. It stirs emotions inside frustration, confusion, sometimes even self-doubt. But what if I told you that how you handle those moments can define your personal growth? Ignoring someone back or overthinking the situation won't give you peace. It's not about them, it's about you and your reaction. We've all been there, reaching out to someone only to be met with silence. That silence can feel deafening, can't it? It makes you question your worth. But here's the truth, someone else's silence does not define your value. Just because they've chosen to stay quiet doesn't mean you have to fill the space with insecurity. That silence is an invitation for you to go deeper within yourself. When someone ignores you, it can be easy to fall into the trap of questioning your worth. Their silence can feel like a reflection of your value, as if their lack of response somehow diminishes who you are. But the truth is, your value is not defined by someone else's silence. It is important to remember that everyone is dealing with their own challenges, perspectives, and priorities. Often when someone ignores you, it says more about them and where they are in their life than it does about you. Yet, it's human nature to want to connect the dots, to think, what did I do wrong? Or why am I not worth their time? These questions spiral, creating unnecessary emotional turbulence. And while it's natural to feel hurt or confused, we must learn to separate our identity from how others behave toward us. Your value is intrinsic. It isn't something that can be given or taken away by anyone else. Just because someone chooses not to engage with you at a given moment doesn't make you less deserving of love, respect, or acknowledgement. Every person you encounter sees the world through their own lens, shaped by their experiences, upbringing, and emotional state. They bring their own set of baggage to every interaction. Sometimes their silence has nothing to do with you at all. They might be overwhelmed with personal issues, struggling with their own insecurities, or simply not in a place to communicate. When we take these actions personally, we miss the bigger picture. The act of someone ignoring you is about them, not about you. Yet, it's hard not to take things personally, isn't it? When we reach out to someone, we often invest a piece of ourselves in that interaction. It might be a simple text, a conversation, or even an expression of vulnerability. When that effort is met with silence, it feels like rejection. And rejection, in any form, can sting. Our minds immediately start trying to fill in the blanks, looking for explanations, and often the explanations we come up with are negative. They don't care. I'm not important to them. I must have done something wrong. These thoughts are like quicksand, pulling us deeper into self-doubt and insecurity. But pause for a moment. What if their silence is not about you? What if their silence is their way of dealing with their own life, their own issues? What if their silence is temporary? Sometimes people need space, and that space is not a reflection of how they feel about you, but rather what they need for themselves. It's important to recognize that everyone has their own battles, and sometimes they might not have the capacity to communicate in the way we hope or expect. This doesn't mean they value you any less. It doesn't mean you aren't important. It simply means they are dealing with life in their own way. When someone ignores you, it's an opportunity to reflect on your own reactions. Why does their silence bother you so much? What is it triggering inside of you? Often it's not the silence itself, but what that silence represents to you. Maybe it reminds you of past experiences where you felt overlooked or unimportant. Maybe it taps into a deeper fear of not being valued. Understanding the root of your feelings can help you gain clarity. When you realize that your value doesn't hinge on someone else's actions or inactions, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop giving away control over how you feel about yourself. In those moments of silence, when you're left wondering why someone isn't responding, it's crucial to remind yourself that you are whole and worthy, regardless of their actions. Your worth is not determined by external validation. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking approval or acknowledgement from others to feel good about ourselves. But true confidence, true self-worth comes from within. It comes from knowing that you are enough just as you are, with or without someone's acknowledgement. Think about it. If every time someone ignored you, you started questioning your worth, you'd be on an emotional roller coaster, constantly at the mercy of other people's actions. That's no way to live. Your emotional well-being should not be dependent on whether someone texts you back, responds to your email, or acknowledges your presence. You are worthy simply because you exist, because you are you. The more you internalize this truth, the less power other people's actions will have over you. This doesn't mean you should dismiss your feelings. It's okay to feel hurt, disappointed, or confused when someone ignores you. But once you've acknowledged those feelings, it's essential to remind yourself that their behavior does not diminish your value. They might be dealing with something entirely unrelated to you. Or maybe they don't have the emotional intelligence or maturity to communicate properly. Either way, that's not your burden to carry. Your job is to stay grounded in your own sense of self-worth. It's also worth considering the role of expectations. We often expect others to respond in a certain way or behave in a way that aligns with our own values. When they don't, it's easy to feel let down. But not everyone operates from the same set of principles or communicates in the same way. Understanding this can help you navigate situations where you feel ignored. It doesn't make the experience any less frustrating, but it can help you put things into perspective. It can help you separate their actions from your worth. When you release the need for external validation, you begin to cultivate a deeper relationship with yourself. You start to trust that, no matter what happens, you are enough. You start to believe that your value is not contingent upon how others treat you. This shift in mindset is incredibly empowering. It frees you from the constant need for approval and allows you to stand tall in your own self-worth. You no longer need someone else to tell you that you matter because you already know it deep within. At the end of the day, people will come and go from your life. Some will stay and some will drift away. Some will lift you up and others might bring you down. But through it all, the one constant is you. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have. If you base your value on how others treat you, you'll always be chasing validation. But if you root your value in who you are and what you know to be true about yourself, you'll find that no one's silence can shake you. When someone ignores you, the first instinct might be to brush it off, pretend it doesn't matter, or even convince yourself that you're unaffected. But deep down, emotions begin to bubble up. You may feel frustration, confusion, or even sadness. Ignoring or suppressing those feelings might seem like the easier option, but it rarely leads to a healthy resolution. Instead, acknowledging and processing your emotions is the key to moving forward. It's important to recognize that how we feel in these moments is valid. You might not want to feel the hurt, the rejection, or the anger, but allowing yourself to experience those emotions without judgment is essential. When someone ignores you, it's like being caught off guard in a conversation that never fully happened. There's no closure, no definitive understanding of why the person chose silence. And that ambiguity can stir up deep emotional responses. These feelings can range from mild irritation to a more profound sense of loss or rejection. Often the silence triggers emotions that aren't just about the present moment. They can be tied to past experiences where you felt unseen, unheard, or overlooked. These echoes of the past resurface, amplifying the current situation and making it feel much more intense than it might actually be. But here's the thing: emotions demand to be felt. You can't outrun them, no matter how fast you try to move on. If you bury them, they'll resurface later, often in more destructive ways. So instead of pushing them aside, let yourself feel them. If you're angry, let yourself be angry. If you're hurt, acknowledge that pain. If you're confused, sit with that uncertainty. By allowing yourself to process your feelings, you are giving them space to exist without letting them control you. It's important to understand that acknowledging your emotions doesn't mean you're indulging in negativity. It means you're facing what's happening inside you with honesty and self-compassion. Many times, when we are ignored, our immediate reaction is to turn inward and blame ourselves. We ask, what did I do wrong? Why am I not worth their attention? These thoughts create a narrative of self-blame, leading to unnecessary guilt or shame. But what if, instead of turning inward with criticism, you turn inward with curiosity and care? What if, instead of assuming you're the problem, you acknowledge that you're feeling hurt, And that's okay. Being ignored taps into our need for connection, and when that connection is withheld, it feels personal. But more often than not, it isn't about you. It's about the other person and whatever they're dealing with. However, even if their silence isn't about you, your emotional response is real. By acknowledging it, you're giving yourself the permission to feel without attaching negative judgments to those emotions. For example, if someone's silence makes you angry, instead of telling yourself you shouldn't feel that way, you might say, I'm feeling angry because I value communication, and this silence feels disrespectful to me. By framing your emotions in this way, you begin to understand why you feel the way you do, and you can process those feelings in a healthier manner. There's also the element of frustration that comes with not knowing why someone has chosen to ignore you. Our minds are wired to seek clarity and understanding, and when we don't get answers, it creates discomfort. This frustration can fester, turning into resentment if it's not addressed. But again, it's about recognizing that your frustration is a valid response. It's okay to feel upset when things are left unresolved. Ignoring these feelings only intensifies them over time. Emotions, particularly the uncomfortable ones, often get a bad reputation. We're conditioned to believe that we need to be happy all the time, that feeling anything less than positive is a sign of weakness or failure. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Your emotions are signals guiding you to understand what's going on beneath the surface. When someone ignores you and you feel hurt, that feeling is telling you something. It's an opportunity to examine what matters to you. Maybe it's a reminder that you value open and honest communication. Maybe it's a signal that this person's behavior doesn't align with the kind of relationships you want to cultivate in your life. Whatever the case may be, emotions provide valuable insights if we're willing to listen. Processing your feelings also means accepting that it's okay to be vulnerable. We live in a society that often encourages emotional stoicism, particularly in moments of rejection or discomfort. But vulnerability is where true strength lies. It's in those moments of feeling hurt, frustrated, or rejected that you have the chance to connect more deeply with yourself. By admitting to yourself that you feel ignored or hurt, you're acknowledging your humanity. You're recognizing that it's okay to feel, and in doing so, you're creating space for healing and growth. It's tempting, in these situations, to immediately seek distraction. We live in a world where avoiding our emotions is as easy as scrolling through social media, binge watching a show, or diving into work. Distraction offers temporary relief, but it doesn't address the root of the issue. The feelings you're trying to avoid will eventually catch up to you, often when you least expect it. By choosing to sit with your emotions, to feel them fully, you are taking control of your emotional well-being. You're saying, I'm not going to run from this. I'm going to face it head on, and that is incredibly empowering. It's also important to consider how unprocessed emotions can impact your relationships. When you suppress how you feel, those emotions don't just disappear. They linger beneath the surface, affecting how you interact with others. You might find yourself becoming more irritable, distant, or withdrawn, and the people around you won't understand why. By processing your emotions, you not only improve your relationship with yourself, but also with those around you. When you're honest with yourself about how you feel, you're more likely to communicate openly and effectively with others. Acknowledging your feelings also prevents you from falling into patterns of avoidance or denial. Denying your emotions doesn't make them go away, it just pushes them deeper into your subconscious, where they can manifest in other ways. You might find yourself feeling anxious, stressed, or even physically unwell, all because your body and mind are trying to cope with the unprocessed emotions you've been ignoring. By taking the time to process your feelings, you're allowing yourself to heal, both emotionally and physically. Another critical aspect of processing your emotions is self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on yourself when you're feeling hurt or vulnerable. You might think, I shouldn't let this bother me, or I need to toughen up. But emotions aren't something you can control or shut off at will. They're a natural part of being human, and they deserve to be treated with kindness. When you practice self-compassion, you're giving yourself the grace to feel without judgment. You're saying, it's okay to be hurt. It's okay to feel disappointed. I'm allowed to feel this way. and I'm going to be gentle with myself as I work through it. Processing your emotions also requires patience. It's not something that happens overnight. You might feel fine one day and then suddenly be overwhelmed by sadness or anger the next. That's normal. Emotions are not linear, they ebb and flow. Some days you'll feel strong and resilient, and other days you'll feel vulnerable and uncertain. Both are valid, and both are part of the healing process. The key is to give yourself the time and space to work through your emotions without rushing the process. When someone ignores you, it's natural to feel hurt, frustrated, or even angry. But beyond the surface level emotions, it's essential to take a step back and shift your perspective. Often we react immediately to the discomfort of being ignored, assuming the worst or internalizing their actions as a reflection of our own worth. However, if you pause and dig deeper into why this silence affects you so much, you may discover that it is not just about the other person's behavior. Instead, it could be about unresolved feelings, old wounds, or even patterns of thought that shape how you interpret their silence. When someone chooses not to respond to you, it taps into the human desire for connection and validation. We naturally crave interaction and acknowledgement, and when those needs go unmet, it triggers a host of emotional responses. However, if we zoom out and shift our focus from why are they ignoring me to why is this affecting me the way it is, we begin to unravel deeper truths about ourselves. This is not about blaming yourself, but about understanding the root of your emotional reaction. When you shift your perspective in this way, you transform the situation from a source of pain into an opportunity for personal growth and insight. Often the pain of being ignored brings up past experiences where we felt unseen or undervalued. These moments might have occurred in childhood, in relationships, or in other interactions where we didn't receive the attention or care we needed. Those feelings of being overlooked, rejected, or dismissed can leave a lasting imprint on us, shaping how we respond to similar situations in the present. When someone ignores us now, it can feel like we're reliving those old experiences, causing our reactions to be more intense than the situation might warrant. Shifting your perspective means recognizing this connection between the past and the present. It's about understanding that your emotional response might be amplified because it's tapping into unresolved feelings from earlier in your life. Another important aspect of shifting your perspective is recognizing that the other person's silence might have nothing to do with you. People have their own lives, their own struggles, and their own reasons for how they behave. When someone doesn't respond to you, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't care about you or that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. They might be dealing with their own challenges, distractions, or emotional states that have nothing to do with you. By considering the possibility that their actions aren't personal, you can alleviate some of the emotional weight you're carrying. This perspective helps you separate their behavior from your self-worth, allowing you to respond with more compassion and understanding rather than frustration and self-doubt. In many cases, our immediate reaction to being ignored is to internalize the experience. We might think, what did I do wrong? Or why don't they value me? These thoughts often spiral, leading us to question our worth or replay every interaction, searching for where we might have made a mistake. But shifting your perspective means recognizing that other people's actions are not always a reflection of your value. Instead of focusing on what you might have done to deserve being ignored, try to understand that their actions are a reflection of where they are in their own life. People are complex, and their behavior can be influenced by a wide range of factors: stress, personal struggles, emotional overwhelm, or even simple forgetfulness. None of these factors diminish your worth. Shifting your perspective also means taking a step back and reframing the situation in a way that empowers you. Instead of seeing the silence as something that diminishes you, view it as an opportunity to strengthen your relationship with yourself. When someone ignores you, it can serve as a reminder to check in with your own emotional well-being. Are you relying too heavily on external validation to feel good about yourself? Are you placing your sense of worth in the hands of others, hoping they'll validate you through their attention? By reframing the experience in this way, you begin to see it as a chance to develop more emotional independence. You can remind yourself that your value doesn't come from whether someone responds to you, but from the inherent worth you possess. One of the most powerful shifts in perspective you can make is to view the situation as an opportunity for growth. While being ignored can feel like a rejection, it can also serve as a catalyst for personal reflection and self-awareness. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can this experience help me grow? By approaching the situation with curiosity rather than judgment, you create space for growth. Maybe it's an opportunity to practice patience, to let go of the need for control, or to develop greater emotional resilience. When you see the experience through the lens of growth, you transform it from a source of pain into a stepping stone toward greater self-awareness and personal development. Another important shift in perspective is recognizing that everyone communicates differently. Just because someone isn't responding in the way you expect doesn't mean they don't care or that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. People have different communication styles, and sometimes silence is their way of processing their emotions or managing their own stress. It's important to remember that communication is not always about immediate responses. Sometimes people need time and space to process things before they feel ready to engage. By recognizing and respecting this, you can avoid taking their silence personally and instead approach the situation with greater understanding and empathy. This shift in perspective also involves letting go of assumptions. When someone ignores us, our minds tend to fill in the blanks with negative assumptions. We might assume they're upset with us, that they don't care, or that we've done something wrong. But these assumptions are often just that, assumptions. They're not based on concrete facts, but on our own fears and insecurities. Shifting your perspective means recognizing that you don't have all the information and that jumping to conclusions only amplifies your emotional distress. Instead of assuming the worst, allow for the possibility that there's more to the situation than you can see right now. Maybe they're dealing with something in their personal life, or perhaps they simply need time to respond. By letting go of assumptions, you can reduce the emotional toll of the situation and approach it with more openness and patience. Shifting your perspective also means embracing the uncertainty that comes with being ignored. As humans, we crave clarity and resolution, and when we don't get it, it creates discomfort. But part of emotional growth is learning to sit with that discomfort, to accept that sometimes we won't have all the answers, and that's okay. By accepting the uncertainty, you stop trying to control the situation and instead focus on controlling how you respond to it. This shift allows you to cultivate a sense of inner peace, even when external circumstances are unclear or unresolved. It's also worth considering how shifting your perspective can lead to greater compassion, both for yourself and for others. When you're able to step back and see the bigger picture, you can extend empathy to the person who's ignoring you. Maybe they're going through something difficult and their silence has nothing to do with you. By approaching the situation with compassion rather than frustration, you create space for healing and understanding. At the same time, shifting your perspective allows you to be kinder to yourself. Instead of beating yourself up or questioning your worth, you can remind yourself that you're doing the best you can in a challenging situation. This self-compassion helps you move through the experience with more grace and less self-criticism. In conclusion, shifting your perspective when someone ignores you is about moving away from immediate emotional reactions and toward a deeper understanding of yourself and the situation. It's about recognizing that their behavior is not necessarily a reflection of your worth, but rather a complex interplay of factors that may have nothing to do with you. By taking a step back, reframing the situation, and focusing on your own emotional growth, you transform a potentially painful experience into an opportunity for self-awareness, empathy, and resilience. Letting go of the need to control other people's actions is one of the most liberating yet challenging lessons we can learn, especially when we feel ignored. We are wired to seek connection, approval, and validation from those around us, and when we don't receive those things, it's natural to feel as though something has gone wrong. When someone ignores you, the instinct is often to try and fix the situation, to figure out what you can do to get their attention, to make them see you, or to change their behavior in a way that brings you comfort. But this desire to control other people's actions only leads to frustration, disappointment, and an endless cycle of emotional distress. True peace comes when you release that need for control and understand that people will act according to their own priorities, experiences, and emotional states, none of which are within your power to manage. When you try to control how others behave, you set yourself up for disappointment. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if I just say the right thing, they'll respond, or if I act in a certain way, they'll notice me. This mindset places your sense of worth and emotional well-being in the hands of someone else, making your happiness dependent on their actions. But the reality is, no matter how much effort you put into trying to influence or change someone else's behavior, you cannot control their choices. People are autonomous beings with their own thoughts, feelings, and motivations. They may choose to ignore you for reasons that have nothing to do with you, or they may simply be too absorbed in their own life to give you the attention you seek. Either way, trying to control their actions only leads to more frustration because you're fighting against something that's not within your power. Letting go of this need to control is not about giving up or accepting defeat. It's about recognizing the limits of your influence and choosing to focus on what you can control: your own actions, your own thoughts, and your own emotional responses. When someone ignores you, you can't force them to acknowledge you, but you can control how you respond to their silence. You can choose to interpret their behavior in a way that doesn't diminish your self-worth. You can choose to focus on your own well-being rather than fixating on why they aren't engaging with you. This shift in focus is empowering because it puts you back in control of your own emotional state. Instead of feeling helpless or dependent on someone else's actions, you regain a sense of agency over your life. It's important to remember that the need to control often stems from a deeper fear of uncertainty. When someone ignores you, it creates a sense of ambiguity. You don't know why they aren't responding, and that lack of clarity can be unsettling. The mind naturally wants to fill in the blanks to make sense of the situation, and in doing so, it often creates narratives that aren't necessarily true. You might start thinking, they don't care about me, or I must have done something wrong, even though you don't have all the information. This need for control is a way of trying to manage the discomfort of not knowing. But in reality, this attempt to control the situation only adds to your stress and anxiety. By letting go of the need to control, you are also letting go of the need for certainty, allowing yourself to be okay with the unknown. Part of letting go of control is accepting that other people have the right to make their own choices, even if those choices don't align with what you want. It can be difficult to accept that someone may choose not to engage with you, but their actions are not within your realm of influence. You can't force someone to communicate or behave in the way you want them to, and trying to do so only creates tension and resentment. By releasing the need to control, you are acknowledging that people are entitled to their own autonomy. This doesn't mean you agree with or like their behavior, but it does mean you respect their right to make their own decisions, even if those decisions cause you pain. Letting go of control also means releasing the expectations you place on others. Often when we feel ignored, it's because the other person hasn't met our expectations of how they should behave. We expect them to respond promptly, to show interest, or to be present in the way we want them to be. When those expectations aren't met, it creates disappointment and frustration. But expectations are just our own assumptions about how we think people should act. They aren't guarantees. People will not always behave in the way you expect or want. And holding on to rigid expectations only sets you up for disappointment. By letting go of these expectations, you free yourself from the emotional turmoil that comes when others don't meet them. Instead, you can approach situations with more flexibility, understanding that people are not obligated to act in a way that aligns with your desires. Releasing the need to control also allows for healthier relationships. When you stop trying to control how others behave, you create space for more authentic connections. Instead of trying to shape the other person's actions to fit your needs, you allow them to be themselves. This leads to more honest and open interactions because you're not placing undue pressure on the relationship. You're not constantly trying to steer the other person in a certain direction or manipulate their behavior to get the outcome you want. Instead, you're able to engage with them as they are, accepting their actions without trying to change them. This openness fosters mutual respect and understanding, which are the foundation of strong, healthy relationships. Letting go of control also helps you cultivate a deeper sense of inner peace. When you stop fixating on what other people are doing or not doing, you can focus on what truly matters: your own growth and well-being. You're no longer wasting energy trying to influence outcomes that are beyond your control. Instead, you can channel that energy into nurturing yourself, building your own resilience and developing a stronger sense of self-worth. This inner peace comes from knowing that you are enough as you are, regardless of how others treat you. You don't need someone else's attention or validation to feel whole. By letting go of the need to control, you're allowing yourself to be at peace with whatever happens, trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way. Letting go of control also requires practicing acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean you have to like or agree with the situation, but it does mean acknowledging reality as it is, without trying to change it. When someone ignores you, it's easy to resist what's happening, to wish things were different, or to try and force a resolution. But resistance only creates more tension and frustration. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows you to acknowledge the situation without fighting against it. It's a way of saying, this is how things are right now, and I'm going to be okay with that. Acceptance doesn't mean you're giving up on the relationship or resigning yourself to being ignored forever. It simply means you're choosing to let go of the struggle and focus on what you can control, your own response to the situation. Letting go of control also involves practicing patience. When someone ignores you, the immediate instinct is often to demand a resolution, to get an answer, or to make the person engage with you. But sometimes the best course of action is to wait. People need time and space to process their own emotions and make their own decisions. By giving them that space, you're allowing them to come to their own conclusions without pressure. This doesn't mean you're passively waiting for them to acknowledge you, but rather that you're practicing patience and trusting that things will unfold as they're meant to. Patience allows you to release the urgency of the situation and approach it with more calm and clarity. Letting go of control also requires self-awareness. It's important to recognize when you're trying to control a situation or someone's actions and to ask yourself why. Are you trying to manage your own discomfort? Are you seeking validation or approval from the other person? Understanding the underlying motivations behind your desire for control can help you release it. When you become aware of why you're trying to control the situation, you can begin to address those deeper needs in healthier ways. Instead of looking to others to meet your emotional needs, you can turn inward and find ways to nurture yourself. Finally, letting go of control is an act of self-care. When you release the need to control others, you're giving yourself the gift of emotional freedom. You're no longer burdened by the weight of trying to manage other people's actions or worrying about how they're going to respond. You're free to focus on your own well-being, your own happiness, and your own path forward. This act of self-care allows you to reclaim your energy and your peace of mind, knowing that you are responsible for your own happiness. Practicing self-compassion when someone ignores you is one of the most important steps you can take to protect your emotional well-being. When faced with silence or indifference, it's easy to fall into a pattern of self-criticism and doubt, questioning your worth or wondering if you've done something wrong. These thoughts can spiral into a negative narrative where you blame yourself for the other person's behavior, convincing yourself that their silence is a reflection of your value. But this kind of thinking is not only harmful, it's also untrue. Practicing self-compassion means shifting away from self-judgment and instead offering yourself the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend in a similar situation. It's about recognizing that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, and that being ignored is not a reflection of who you are as a person. Self-compassion begins with acknowledging your feelings without judgment. When someone ignores you, it's natural to feel hurt, confused, or even angry. These emotions are valid, and it's important to give yourself permission to feel them rather than pushing them away or pretending they don't exist. Often we're tempted to minimize our own pain, telling ourselves things like, I shouldn't be so sensitive, or I'm overreacting, but this only adds to the emotional burden. Instead, self-compassion invites you to be gentle with yourself, recognizing that it's okay to feel hurt when someone you care about doesn't respond to you. By acknowledging your emotions without judgment, you create space to process them in a healthy way, rather than allowing them to fester or turn into deeper feelings of inadequacy. One of the key aspects of self-compassion is understanding that everyone experiences difficult emotions, and that what you're going through is part of the shared human experience. When someone ignores you, it can feel isolating, as though you're the only one who's ever been in that position or the only one struggling with those feelings. But the truth is, everyone faces moments of rejection, disappointment, and uncertainty. By recognizing that you're not alone in this experience, you can begin to let go of some of the shame or self-blame that often accompanies being ignored. Self-compassion allows you to see your pain as part of a larger, universal human experience rather than as a personal failure or a sign that there's something wrong with you. Another important aspect of self-compassion is reframing the way you talk to yourself. When someone ignores you, it's common to engage in negative self-talk, telling yourself things like, "I must not be important," or "I'm not worth their time." These thoughts are often automatic, arising from deep-seated insecurities or past experiences where we may have felt similarly ignored or rejected. However, self-compassion encourages you to challenge these thoughts and replace them with more compassionate, supportive ones. Instead of saying, "I must have done something wrong," you can remind yourself that other people's actions are not a reflection of your worth. Instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," you can affirm that your value is inherent and doesn't depend on how others treat you. This shift in self-talk is powerful because it changes the narrative from one of self-blame to one of self-acceptance. Practicing self-compassion also means being patient with yourself. It's easy to get frustrated when you feel ignored, especially if you've been in similar situations before. You might feel like you should be over it by now, or that you shouldn't be as affected by someone's silence. But healing from emotional pain takes time, and self-compassion involves giving yourself the grace to heal at your own pace. It's okay to take time to process your feelings and to work through the emotions that come up when someone ignores you. There's no timeline for how long it should take to move past a difficult situation, and by being patient with yourself, you allow space for genuine healing to occur. This patience is a form of self-care, as it acknowledges that you are deserving of the time and attention needed to fully process your emotions. In addition to being patient, self-compassion also involves setting boundaries with yourself when it comes to overthinking and rumination. When someone ignores you, it's natural to replay the situation in your mind, searching for clues or trying to figure out what went wrong. This kind of mental replay can quickly turn into rumination, where you become stuck in a loop of negative thoughts and self-doubt. Self-compassion means recognizing when this is happening and gently guiding yourself away from it. Instead of dwelling on what you could have done differently or why the other person isn't responding, you can remind yourself that it's okay not to have all the answers. You can give yourself permission to let go of the need for constant analysis and instead focus on what makes you feel good in the present moment. This might mean engaging in activities that bring you joy, spending time with supportive people, or simply practicing mindfulness to bring your attention back to the here and now. A big part of self-compassion is learning to forgive yourself for the expectations you might have placed on the other person or on the situation. When we feel ignored, it's often because our expectations haven't been met. We expected a certain response, a certain level of engagement, or a certain kind of communication. And when that doesn't happen, it's easy to feel disappointed or hurt. Self-compassion involves forgiving yourself for having those expectations in the first place, recognizing that it's human to hope for connection and validation from others. At the same time, it's about understanding that those expectations don't define your worth. By letting go of the need for others to meet your expectations, you free yourself from the cycle of disappointment and allow yourself to find peace within. Another crucial element of self-compassion is focusing on self-care. When someone ignores you, it can leave you feeling depleted, emotionally drained, or even rejected. Practicing self-compassion means turning inward and taking care of your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. This might look like taking a break from social media, going for a walk, meditating, journaling, or spending time doing things that nourish your soul. Self-care is about recognizing that you deserve to feel good, regardless of how someone else is treating you. It's a way of showing yourself love and kindness, reminding yourself that you are worthy of care and attention, even if someone else isn't giving it to you at the moment. It's also important to recognize that practicing self-compassion doesn't mean ignoring the hurt you feel. It's not about pretending that everything is okay or brushing off your emotions. Rather, it's about acknowledging the pain while also being kind to yourself in the process. You might say to yourself, this hurts, but I'm going to take care of myself through it. Or I feel sad, but I'm going to be gentle with myself as I heal. Self-compassion is about balancing the acknowledgement of your pain with the understanding that you deserve kindness and care, even in difficult moments. It's a way of showing yourself the same level of empathy that you would show to a friend who is going through something similar. Another important aspect of self-compassion is recognizing that your worth is not tied to external validation. When someone ignores you, it can feel like a rejection, as though their silence is proof that you're not important or valuable. But self-compassion reminds you that your worth is inherent. It's not something that can be given or taken away by someone else's actions. Whether or not someone responds to you, you are still worthy of love, respect, and kindness. Practicing self-compassion means holding on to this truth, even when external circumstances might make you doubt it. It's about grounding yourself in the understanding that your value is not contingent on how others treat you, but is instead something that comes from within. Self-compassion also involves giving yourself permission to step away from situations that are causing you harm. When someone ignores you, it can be tempting to keep reaching out, hoping for a response or trying to fix the situation. But sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to step back and create some distance. Self-compassion means recognizing when a situation is no longer serving you and allowing yourself the space to move on. It's about putting your well-being first, even if it means letting go of the hope that the other person will respond in the way you want. By stepping back, you're showing yourself that your emotional health is a priority and that you deserve to be in situations where you feel valued and respected. Ultimately, practicing self-compassion when someone ignores you is about cultivating a deeper relationship with yourself. It's about learning to be your own source of support, validation, and love, rather than seeking those things from others. As you navigate the moments when someone ignores you, remember that your response to that silence speaks volumes about your strength and resilience. You are not defined by the way others treat you, and their indifference does not diminish your worth. It's easy to internalize that rejection, to wonder what you did wrong, or how you could have acted differently. But the truth is, no one has the power to make you feel small unless you give it to them. It's in these very moments when someone's silence feels like a weight pressing on your chest that you have the opportunity to rise above, to stand firm in the knowledge of who you are, and to treat yourself with the love, care, and respect that you deserve. The world can be noisy, filled with distractions, miscommunications, and misunderstandings, but that noise is external. It's outside of you. What matters most is the voice inside you, the one that tells you that you are enough, that you are valuable, and that your existence does not need to be validated by anyone else. When someone ignores you, it can feel personal, but more often than not, it's about them, their distractions, their priorities, their own struggles. It's not a reflection of your value. So in these moments, instead of letting their silence define how you feel about yourself, let it be a moment where you turn inward, where you remind yourself of your own inherent worth. I think about all the times in your life when you faced adversity, when things didn't go as planned, when you were disappointed by others. And yet, you are still here. You are still standing. That resilience is what will carry you through moments like this. When someone ignores you, it's just one moment in time, one experience in a life full of rich, complex, and beautiful moments. You are so much more than that one experience. You are a person with dreams, with strengths, with kindness in your heart, and the ability to touch others' lives in ways you may not even realize. Their silence does not take that away from you. Allow yourself the space to feel what you feel, but don't stay there. Give yourself permission to grieve the connection you wish was there, but then let go. Let go of the need for their response, for their validation. Let go of the power you've given them over your emotions and take it back. It's yours. The truth is, you are the only one who can define how you feel about yourself. You are the only one who can choose to stand tall, even when someone else tries to diminish you through their silence. And when you do, you'll find that their indifference fades into the background, and what remains is your own unshakable sense of self. Know that there are people out there who see you, who value you, and who are ready to reciprocate the love and kindness you offer. But most importantly, know that you can be that person for yourself. You can choose in every moment to be your own greatest supporter, your own source of strength. When you do, you create a foundation so strong that no one else's actions or inactions can tear it down. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, but more than that, you deserve to feel those things within yourself first. So as you walk forward from this moment, carry with you the understanding that someone else's silence is not your failure. It's not a measure of your worth. You are whole, just as you are. You are deserving of love, attention, and kindness, and you can give those things to yourself. Keep moving forward with your head held high, and trust that the people who are meant to be in your life, the ones who see you and value you, will show up. In the meantime, be that person for yourself, and know that you are more than enough, exactly as you are.